Hi everyone, welcome to the Tech Traffic. Today we'll start with load balancer, which is very important topic in system design. So in this video we'll cover what is load balancer, where the load balancer can be added, the types of load balancer, and the algorithm to use to implement the load balancing. So without wasting our time, let's quickly start the topic. In this diagram, we have a server at the right side, we have a clients at the left side, and the middle we have a internet. So now, when the clients try to access w3school.in, which is routed through internet, it send a request to the server. Now server serve the request of w3school.in. Now imagine when you have a millions of clients, there might be a situation where the server not able to respond the request which is sent by a client. Why I am saying that? Because every server has its own limited resources. Here, resources means the CPU, the disk space, and the memory. So, what is the solution? How we solve this problem? What is how we cope up with this? The easiest and the most logical solution is to add couple of servers. So now the question is that how we channelize the request which is sent by a user. So for that we use a device which is called a load balancer. It's distribute the loads among the various servers. As you are seeing the diagram with a green color, here is a load balancer, and we have a servers, three servers, and the user send a request via internet, routed via internet. It went to the load balancer and it channelized to different nodes, which is also called a server pool. Now, also the main use also load balancer use is used to keep the track of status of all the resources while distributing the request. So if the server is down due to n number of patches or due to some internal issues is, so at that time it server check the status of the resources, load balancer check the status of the resources, and if it is not working it stops sending the traffic. So the next question is where it can be added. The load balancer can be added between the users and the web server. We can add between the web servers and the internal server. Here the internet server is a backend. So between web server and backend, the load balance we can add the load balancer, or we can add between the backend and the database. DB is the database. Types of load balancer. So we have two types of load balancer. One is hardware load balancer, and the second one is software load balancer. So hardware load balancer, it is a physical device which is mainly used some of the big companies as a first point of contact and use other mechanism for load balancing. So this hardware load balancer, it has its own internal mechanism to balance the load or to distribute the loads across the server pool. The most common and almost 95% of companies use software load balancer. So the most common is HA proxy, is an open source software load balancer. So in this here the load balancer act as a virtual IP which is seen by the client or the users. So client send the request to this IP, to the virtual IP, which is our load balancer, and it channelize the loads across the server. Also, it's keep track of the status of the server. So it manages health check and it helps in removing or adding the machines inside the pools. So now comes to the algorithms. So basically we have six types of algorithms. The most common use is round robin algorithm. What is round robin algorithm? So in this diagram you are seeing we have a load balancer and we have a three server. When the request comes from the internet via internet, load balancer send a request according to round robin algorithm. It send the request to the first server, the second request come to the second server, and the third request will come to the third server. When its load balancer send the fourth request, again it passes to the first server, and the fifth request will go to the second server, and so on. So this is the most common and easiest way to distribute the loads. The second algorithm is round robin with weighted server. Here the difference is the memory, the RAM. So let's take, we have a two servers. One has 32 GB RAM and the second server has 64 GB RAM. When the request comes from the load balancer, the server which has more RAM memory, more RAM, it send a request to that server. So according to that, it's channelize the load across the server. The third one is least connection. So least connection algorithms, it checks it checks the nodes which has less number of requests, which are receiving less number of requests. So it send a request to that, it checks and send a request to that particular server inside the server pool. The fourth one is least response time. So generally it checks the response time of all the server, the response time which has the it's measure the response time, and it figure out which server has the least response time, and according to that it send a request to the particular server. And the fifth one is source IP hash. Basically it uses an hashing techniques, which I'll be going to do a separate video for that. It distribute the loads according to the hashing way inside the server pool. And the last one is URL hash. So it also, the both topics will be covered using hashing technique itself. URL hash also, it's distribute the load based on the hashing techniques. So thank you guys. I think you got some introduction about the load balancer. Thank you and watching my video.